example of looking at different ways of topology on a surface. So I've got this real simple shape going right now. If we take a look at the low res, it is really low, and it is very, very simple. Okay. Just isolate, just, turn off the stack there so you're not seeing the top. So it's literally just a plane with a couple of sections in it that I'm starting to shape. It's going to be this piece here, you can see. Now this one's got pretty crisp corners, okay, but other shapes like the bag part here, you can see it's very smooth and fluid and whatnot. And so, you can see these other ones, these straps, they're rounded on the end. How do we get that from something like this? So if we look at the end result, it isn't necessarily what we're after. We turn off the shell, you can see Turbo Smooth isn't doing anything at all that's really very pleasant in that shape. It's just really, really tight into the corners, and Turbo Smooth is just giving this, completely hard corners, in the very corners of things. But there's two ways we can go about, trying to get, a better shape out of this. I'll just turn shell back on so we've got that. Let's take a look at this first option. And so this first option, if I turn off the show end result, you can see that what I've created is just using the Swift loop, right? Just adding in Swift loops. I've added one across the end here, one up that side, and one up that side. And what that's giving me then is a little bit of a soft edge when you look at it, okay? But you can see that the edge flow really doesn't flow around the outside. It doesn't contour around the outside. It's kind of a grid, and we're expecting, Turbo Smooth to round that out. Now it's rounding it out a little bit on the corner because shell is giving it a bit of thickness. Okay, so that's what's happening there. This thickness is being rounded out. So if I actually just turn that off and show the end result, you can see once again Turbo Smooth, just turn off isoline so you can see that Turbo Smooth isn't rounding out those corners. And that's because we use these straight lines crossing over. We made a grid, and Turbo Smooth still working on that grid. Okay, so what's the next option then? Well, I'm going to go to the next edit poly that I've added in here, and I've used these just so I can turn them on and off for you. You can see with shell off, this is getting now a nice rounded corner edge, and you can see that the shape that is being, been created here is a fair bit different in the way it was done. Now, the way this was done was using an inset. So I'll reproduce this for you, and I'll just go and turn off the edit poly and just add another one. And again, I'm using edit poly only for this reference here. So I'm going to go in and grab all of these polygons, and I'm just going to go in and do an inset. So yours is across top somewhere. So inset, and I'm just going to inset that a little bit. What that gave me was a ring around the outside. So if you look at the topology with Turbo Smooth now with shell off, you can see that it's rounding it out, and those edge flows flow all the way around the outside. This is a totally different look than if we take a look at it this way, where they're not. They're going straight across and straight up and down. So that edge flow is producing a nicer result and rounding out those ends. Now, to get it to tighten it up a little bit more, I've had to go in and add some loops across. I'm just going to say show cage so you can do it. So I'm just going to go in and put a loop across, and I can tighten that up, and I'll just put one down the middle as well and tighten that up. And you can see now get these nice flowing edge loops. This is the type of thing that's best to have around things like these nice curved pockets. If it's drawn just like a grid and just has this sort of grid look to it, whoops, we'll go back to that one, and it just has this grid look to it, you're going to get a very gritty shape out of it, and you're going to have a hard time controlling these corners in here. But instead, if you go in and make sure that your edge loops around the outside are following a nice contour, then, that will produce a much cleaner and nicer topology. Topology is king. It's everything, and it's going to get you cleaner, nicer looking meshes.